I've been having some protein cravings lately, so I decided I'm going to make some beef jerky in my Ninja air fryer. So what we're going to need for that is your pan and some aluminum foil. The stuff does drip, it gets messy. You don't want it to hit your burners, you don't want to have to waste time cleaning. That's why we have the aluminum foil. We're going with these wire baskets, and that's because we're drying it out more than cooking it. So you want as much air to be able to circulate and come into contact with the meat as possible. So we're also going to do a marinade on this one. So what you're going to need for that is your measuring cup, measuring spoons. I've got a table, half table, tea, and half tea. We're going to mix everything together in the bowl, put it in a bag overnight. I like to put it on a paper plate because it's got this ridge, and that way if it leaks, if you didn't close it all the way, if something just happens, it's a lot less of a chance of it spilling all over the bottom of your fridge. I've had it before. It is not fun to clean that up. The other reason to have a paper plate is once it's been marinating, we're going to pull them out and we have to pat them dry as best as we possibly can. And I find it easiest to take the paper towels, put it on the bottom, put the meat on, pat it down, move it there, assembly line until you're done. And it's just so much easier to have the paper plate to put it on than to try to smash them together like that. And obviously we're going to need tongs to get them out of the bag. Now with that, let's get to the ingredients you'll need to make this tasty treat. So I personally like to do a teriyaki marinade. So what you're going to need for that is some teriyaki sauce, Worcestershire sauce, dehydrated onions, any garlic and herb blend that you like, honey, black pepper, crushed red pepper flakes, rice vinegar, minced garlic. I like to do in the jar, makes it easier, liquid smoke, and if you want an extra kick, go ahead and add some hot sauce to that. Now for the meat, there's a couple different things you can do. You can get a cut and slice it thin yourself. I have not gotten it to the point where it was the right thickness. It was either too thin or too thick. And that's why I found these eye of round thins. They are really good. They're the perfect size. When they cook down and they get smaller, it's the perfect piece, like that size. And it's also super, super thin. So that's what I'm going to do. So next we're going to go ahead and make the marinade. We're going to put the meat in a bag with that, let it sit in the fridge overnight, and then tomorrow we'll go ahead and use our air fryer to make the jerky. The first thing we're going to do is measure out the teriyaki and the rice vinegar. So it's going to be a half a cup of the teriyaki sauce. And then we're going to add the rice vinegar until we get to 2/3 of a cup. I'm not great at math, that's why I do it that way. And we're going to pour it into this bowl, and then that's it for this measuring cup. You can put that aside. Get out as much as you can. Now we're going to go and add some Worcestershire. I don't have an exact measurement for this. I do about 4 splishes. There you go. And same with the liquid smoke. I don't really have a measurement, just 2 splishes. You can do a little bit more if you wanted to have a more smoky flavor, like you had done it over a fire. That one's up to you. So then we're going to go with a teaspoon of honey. Now it's much easier if you actually have a jar that you can go into, but I've got the bare squeeze bottle right now. There we go. And just sit that like that because it's going to take a while for that to come off. So we're now going to go and get our garlic, and we're going to do a tablespoon of that. So if you're using the already made garlic, make sure you get some of that liquid to drain off before you pull it out. We have enough liquid, we don't need extra. Then for the red pepper flakes, depending on how spicy, some of this stuff. Depending on how spicy you want it. I don't like it super spicy, so I only go with half a tablespoon. No, I don't. That was almost really bad. I go with half a teaspoon. So, I'm going to stop this and get a new measuring thing. Oh boy, that could have been really bad. Anyway, so half a teaspoon. And just scrape it. Okay. Now that we have that taken care of, we're going to do the dehydrated onion, and that's the ½ tablespoon. Good thing I didn't mix those two things up. Okay, in with that. Pepper, that's also an up to you one. I don't put a lot in. I just like the Worcestershire and the liquid smoke, just a couple of shakes. That's it, 2 to 3. And then the hot sauce, that's definitely an up to you one. I don't like to put too much in, just a little to add the flavor, no more than that. Now, if you want it spicier, go ahead, add more spice. That's how this works, always up to you. So, last thing that we need to do is our garlic herb blend. And we're going to go with a teaspoon of that. And since my teaspoon is still being occupied by the honey, doing the 2 half teaspoons in like that. Now, most of the honey's come off. Then you can use that to stir this whole marinade together. That'll get more of the honey to come out. Now, if you have an actual jar of honey and you want to heat it up so it comes out more liquid, that's a great way to do it. I don't like microwaving plastics if I can help it, so that's why we're doing it this way. So you're going to just let this sit for 2 to 5 minutes. You just want to have the spices have a little time to hydrate. And then once you're done with that, we're going to go ahead and pour it into the bag with the meat and set it in the fridge overnight. And then tomorrow, we get to make the meat. Okay, I'm sure we all know how to do marinade into the bag. Well, maybe I don't. Get as much in there as you can. You don't need all of it. You could get another package out of this pretty easily. Get the air out of the bag. Move it around to coat everything. Separate as much as you can because you do want every little square millimeter of this stuff to have some of the marinade on, or else it doesn't cook as evenly. I've made that mistake before. So, unlike normal, where you just flip it every now and then, when we're flipping this, we're going to keep doing that motion and rotating it. And since it's going to be in the fridge for overnight, basically, I'm going to do this again in about an hour, and then an hour after that, then it's going to sit, and then I'm going to do it a couple more times before we start in the air fryer. And since I did make a bit of a mess, this is the other reason you want to have a plate with some ridges on the side so that you can have it sit in there. Spread out the meat as much as you can so it's got as much contact as possible with the marinade. And now my fridge won't get all sticky from the marinade on the outside of the bag. Okay, that's going to be it for tonight. See you guys in a couple hours. So the marinade has been sitting there overnight, so now we're going to actually get to putting it into the air fryer. As you can see, I have the tray with the aluminum foil, and right now I'm preheating the oven. What I like to do is have it at 200 and go for about 20 minutes just to make sure that all the little buggies die off, and then I lower the temperature to about 130 and go for between 4 and 5 hours, checking on it after 2. So I preheat for about 5 to 10 minutes just to make sure it's up to temperature by the time I go in. So let's show you how to process while we're waiting. So you want to have your wire rack, like I said, and you're going to spritz it down with some oil. You can also brush and rub some oil on it, whatever you want. I do have the paper towels underneath just to make sure I don't get super messy. Now I'm going to put this aside, and we're going to have to blot those. So put some paper towels down first. Pull out a couple pieces, put them down, separate them out so that you can get all the different surfaces. Then take another paper towel, press down, and get as much of the moisture off as you can. Now, since we have it on both sides, you really don't have to flip it. Then you're going to put them on here. You don't want them touching because then the airflow can't get around it. but you don't have to have it really far apart either. Just make sure it's as spread out as you can. And we're going to keep doing this until the rack is full, and then we have a second rack for the rest of it. Well, you can see you can get a lot of pieces, but a little bit of a game of Tetris trying to make sure that they don't touch. So sometimes you move them around, see what pieces fit better where. And they don't have to be super far apart, you just don't want them touching at all. And I will do the second rack, and then I'll show you the configuration in the oven. All right, so the jerky's going in now. I have it on racks 4 and 2 just to give as much air circulation as possible. And like I said, we have the pan for the drippings underneath. We're going to cook this for 20 minutes at the 200. That way it's above the kill temperature for most of the bacteria that you need to worry about. And then we're going to lower the temperature, go for 2 hours, check them, possibly flip them, and then go another 2 hours after that. Okay, so these have been in for 2 hours. Looking pretty good. They're still a little wet, so I'm going to go ahead and put these on for another hour and check them and go from there. But I think after that point, they'll be done. Okay, these are definitely done. They are still a little greasy, but that's okay. We're going to keep them in the fridge. This ended up being just a little under 4 hours cook time, 20 minutes at the 200, and then 3.5 hours at the 130. Now, these did have fat on them. I found it's harder to cut them off when they're raw, so you can trim that off now if you want, up to you. But yeah, this is our beef jerky with.